Just going through the things that she said in her letter, uh, both the Liberals and Labour believe that they can win her seat, which she's got. She had 24,664 majority. She says that Sunak was presiding over a directionless zombie parliament and that history will not judge him kindly. Well, history is going to judge her appallingly. But she's right to say that too little is happening under Sunak and that the Conservatives lack a vision. She is right to point out the absurdity of Sunak being in number 10 after actually losing a leadership election. But she didn't articulate that very clearly. What she said that he hadn't actually won anything. Well, in a sense, no prime minister wins an election. A prime minister is appointed, and the Conservative idea of a sort of election in its own ranks, a rank election, is an absurdity, an indulgence. She thinks it's disingenuous of him and the Chancellor, and she's right, to claim credit for an inflation fall that was forecast when Johnson was in office. But in fact, what she did was to give the impression that he was claiming credit for something that the Chancellor had done. Actually, it's something that was already forecast at the time of Johnson. But the biggest thing is the absence of information. So her letter doesn't say anything about her real motivation for going, and that is Sunak's refusal to put her in the House of Lords. She promotes her new book. If it says chaotically punctuated and paragraphed as her letter, if it says chaotically ordered as her letter, it's going to be a hilarious hoot alliteration. There's no reference in the letter to public service, to the fact that her constituents have been paying her salary for doing nothing for the last year, that she hasn't spoken in Parliament for a year, that she has been manipulating the system, that she's using her constituents for some sort of political vendetta. Her vanity is astronomical. She delayed her departure. Her 2-month threat to leave with immediate effect was delayed to such an extent that it was going to inflict damage on the Prime Minister, and there's going to be a by-election just as he goes into the time for the party conferences. She's going to, I suspect, try to publish her book on the eve of the party conference, and that will be a book that will blame everyone other than her, I suspect, for the collapse of the Johnson government. And I'm sure that Mr. Sunak will feature prominently. And demeaning his office by opening the gates to whip up a public frenzy. Threats to my person, clearly orchestrated and daily personal attacks demonstrate the pitifully low level your government has descended to. Her letter has been described as a grotesque, almost tragic sense of entitlement. And there's not much more to say than that. She is the most selfish individual, or she's articulated a selfish disregard for ordinary people, and those ordinary people have voted her in. She's demonstrated a selfish disregard for her party that gave her so many opportunities, and a complete failure to recognise that politics is about service to the people, not to herself. It's all about me, me, me. And it's a really, really sad statement of probably something she shares. And I think she's been so long in that bubble that she doesn't realise what's wrong with what she's saying. She's not the only person who could say a lot of the stuff in that letter and who could adopt that tone. I think there's many Conservative MPs who might adopt that tone in their resignation letter. I think if they did, they would be as foolish as she. I think most of them would get some advice about their grammar before they went into print. She simply comes across as a fool, and I find it so sad that somebody who showed so much promise. Now, I know you may think when you're listening to me witter on about Nadine Dorries for months, you may think, oh, I'm her arch enemy. I was looking forward to this day. Well, I was looking forward to this day. I wanted this to come. But when she entered office, I was very hopeful. There was somebody who had a background in the arts, or when she entered a ministerial office, I was hopeful. And I wrote to her with every hope in her success at the DCMS. And she did nothing. She did absolutely nothing. Now, she didn't answer my letters. Despite my MP prodding, though I think his prods are fairly ineffective. But she demonstrably did nothing. A lot of hot air. And when she should have been working on her bills, she was preening around Boris. She got it all back to front. I'm pleased she's gone, but she's the first of a number who need to go. Jenrick, Suella Braverman, and of course those who have found a place elsewhere. Lee Anderson, Rees Mogg, Esther McVeigh. You can't have two jobs. Not in this business. Either you're in Parliament or you're not.